incredible. The podcast it's just gone global. It's gone all over social media. So if you have any questions for us at any point, make sure you send them through. I'm not sure you could be able to just send them through anywhere and it goes through to my little hub here. But if it's not getting answered, then I would then probably just head onto YouTube and ask there, because that's where I'll be basing, or at least tracking questions of. So good to have you all along. As you can see, we've got a fancy new setup, so it's all a bit confusing right now, but hopefully we'll figure it out along the way. And by the end of today, we'll be pros at this. But yeah, welcome to episode 61 of the Trademate Sports Betting Podcast. Live again, we'll do a preview of EPL Game Week 8, and then towards the end, we'll give you some best bets from some of the other leagues around Europe. And maybe Harout's got some good UFC bets up his sleeve. You never know. But firstly, I'll introduce the man on the top right of your screen, I would assume. His name's George Gamble from Spreadsheets, card betting expert, mate. How are you after another superb week? You're now, 6 out of 7 of your last best bets of the week, and you're on fire, mate.
Yeah, 6 out of 7. Long may it continue. Obviously, got one for today as well. So hopefully that extends to 7 out of 8. We'll see. But did all right. Obviously, as many of you all know, UK's gone back into lockdown. So happy days, as they say. But no, apart from that, I'm doing good.
Yep, good man. Already got a comment about how good the setup's looking, fellas. So this is just a great start. New beginnings. Happy days.
It's the background. That's what's done it.
It's the background, yeah. I just need to join in on like the loungy kind of view in the background from you guys. You guys got the bed, you got the couch, Harout. It's like it's just I've got the white wall.
It's lockdown. I've got everything I need in this room. I never need to leave.
I'm redoing the closet.
Yeah. Same, mate. You could have cleaned up a bit. All right, and we've got Harout. He's obviously just chimed in himself. They're Pro Sports Bettor. I think you picked up what I've done is I've gone through and I had a look at some of the bets you gave away last week. So you said 3 UFC ones, and although the Philly one didn't get up, I mean, you set it at 220 and it moved into 1.98, and you also had Hernandez and Strickland, who moved in. I mean, Strickland moved in 8 points, and so did Hernandez 4 points from 1.25 to 1.21. So they were also pretty big moves too, mate. So well done to you.
Yeah, it was just I could tell by the way the markets were moving that those were most likely to keep trending in that way. So we'll take a look today too and see what we could find.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, I was talking to Ryan about this early last week, and he said Philly. He told me to get on Philly at like 2.4 or something like that. So it's crazy that, by Thursday it was at 2.2 and then it just kept moving in and into 1.98 at close. It just shows how big these UFC fighters can move in, eh?
Yeah, for sure. And they tend to be really inefficient when they first open. So you tend to see a lot of big moves.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Well, quiz question of the week this week. I've just gone for a bit of an Australian theme once again. Just felt like I'd give my locals a bit of a shout out here. What is the name of the Pro Football League in Australia? So it's pretty sad, but I don't know. You probably don't know what the name is. I'm just guessing. So we'll see. We'll see how you go. But I'll give you a few options here. Maybe George knows. Option 1, A-League. 2, Australian Soccer League. Australian Football League, or Australian Soccer Premiership. So there's a few options for you fellas, and we'll see if you can get this one. Probably one of the tougher questions you've ever had. Thought I'd give you a bit of an easier one after I absolutely tailed you guys up last week with that one.
Here we go.
Yeah. All right, so we got 10 games as always this weekend, all on Saturday and Sunday before the international break. So I guess we won't be here next week, which is a bit sad. Maybe we can talk a bit of UFC if there's something good on. I can't even remember at this point. There's so much going on. But we'll kick off with Everton Man United, fellas. Pretty decent game here. We've got Everton so these odds I've checked about 24 hours ago, so they could have changed since. I've got Everton at 3.0, draw 3.59, and 2.45 for Manchester United. Everton have fallen off just a little bit after a pretty decent start to the season. I think they're coming off 2 losses to Southampton and Newcastle. And then Manchester United, on the other hand, coming off a huge loss to Arsenal last weekend. And we finally broke the duck. We finally broke the losses away from home, to big 6 teams. The last one was in Man City in 2015, mate. So finally got rid of that monkey off your back. Hey, George, what a monkey it was. So Manchester United coming off some big losses, but they do love an away game compared to home at the moment. What are you thinking in this one, George?
Well, just obviously it was I kind of favoured United in that one, but was happy to be proved wrong to see them lose. So they're awful at home this season, absolutely awful. But as you've just mentioned, they do obviously prefer an away trip. Just kind of doing some research into it. Everton are still unbeaten their last 3 league games against Man United, but as you said, they've also come off a couple of losses. Last time out, obviously against Newcastle, they didn't have James Rodriguez, who's been one of the signs of the season so far. He's been excellent. Also, we're without Lucadinha and Richarlison as well. Interestingly, Lucadinha will come back for this one. He's quite important for them at the back, not just in terms of his defensive output, but going forward as well. He does create a few chances. He's quite reliable for them, so he comes back into this one. I think Richarlison is going to be serving the last game of his ban, so he's still going to be unavailable for this one. And I think that is still a big loss for Everton.
Huge.
When they've had Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison up top, Richarlison makes so many chances as well, so he's a big miss. But I think the fact that Everton's form dipped it coincides with James Rodriguez picking up an injury. Obviously, when it was against Liverpool, I know he played after that, but it wasn't his usual self. Still, obviously carrying that knock, and obviously without Richarlison as well. So I think it's coincided with that. I think they're so dependable. They're so important. They're catalyst for how Everton play. But likewise, United have been terrible. Obviously, they were awful against you guys last weekend. They were awful midweek against Istanbul Başakşehir. The defending was comical. I know you can call on bad defending at times, but it was honestly comical. It's kids football. You'd expect to see that kind of defending, and if they do that this weekend, I don't care if they're better away from home, and if they're missing a few players, Everton will destroy them. I do think they'll have a bit of a response, though. I don't think they can play as bad as they did against Istanbul. But it's kind of going through it. United have won more Premier League games against Everton than any other side has won against another opponent in the competition's history. But and also, they've won in their 16 wins at Goodison Park as the joint most away wins for a club specific venue. I don't see Everton. I don't see Everton losing 3 on the spin, though. I just don't see it happening. With United's form, I quite like Everton here, regardless of the fact they're missing Richarlison. So in terms of results-wise, I'd have Everton. They'd be my favourites. I can see a draw happening for me. It'd be Everton or draw, double chance. And interestingly, in terms of cards, so obviously it's Paul Tierney who's going to be the referee in this one. And in his last 20 games in all competition, he's shown the away side at least a card in 18 of them. The way United are playing, I fancy them to pick up a couple against Everton. So depending on what the price is, I need to obviously double check you as well. But I quite like United to pick up a couple of cards. So if I was to have a go on this one, I'll probably go on Everton double chance and United to pick up 2 cards at least.
Wow, there we go. I thought there was a little bit of value with Manchester United there, just because their away form has been quite decent. And Everton, they've kind of fallen off the line lately. They've lost their last 2 games against not the biggest 2 teams in the league.
Yeah. No, definitely. But I think for me, just with the way they are, Ole, from by all accounts, he's not under pressure of any sorts. The United board are backing him. I think any other kind of manager, I think there'd be a lot of questions asked. But it seems they're sticking with him, which I don't know about you guys, but I've never seen. I know I don't like United. I respect them if they do well. And I liked Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a bloke. I thought he's a decent person. He's obviously a relatively decent manager, but I don't see him as the person to get United back to where they want to be. I mean, I don't know if you feel the same, whether that's just my bias coming into play, but
I don't know how he survived this long. I mean, I thought he would have been gone last season, to be honest. I feel I compare him to Giroud when he was playing for Arsenal. What Giroud would do is he'd play like 5 of the most terrible games in a row, and then Wenger would just give him, we'll give you one more game, basically, and then he'd come out and score a hat trick. Then he'd just play 5 more games of shit in a row. But I kind of compare it to that a little bit, Ollie. And I think I don't know why I get that he's like a good transitional manager, I guess. But I mean, how long are you going to bloody transition for? And
exactly.
And I can understand him staying there until someone pops up that's good. Like, you don't want to just sack him and then that you've got, another Ollie coming in, if you know what I mean, like no one that's actually like takes you to that next step. But you've still got Pochettino sitting out there. Like, that's who I'd be chasing if I was them. I mean, I know he's won no trophies, but I mean, what he did with Tottenham is speaks for itself. So he took them to a Champions League final, which is pretty remarkable for a squad of that quality, I think. So I don't know. If it was me, I'd be chasing someone else if they could find anyone better than Ollie, which shouldn't be too hard. Haru, what are the markets doing in this game?
Nothing really. It's been pretty stagnant since the opener. I haven't really seen any volume on any particular side. Just a slight lean towards the overs. There's a bit of money there, but nothing significant.
Yeah, okay. That's very interesting. So I guess the market's pretty happy with these prices then at the moment, hey, Haru?
Yeah, it looks that way.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Got a few questions coming in about the election. Have you bet the election yet, Haru?
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. There's a lot of big movement going on in some of the markets. But on like the first day when like the votes were first starting to be counted was at like $5. He even reached like $6 at some spots. And then within that night, he completely reversed. And then when I woke up the next morning, Trump was like a $4 underdog. So it was just like a massive swing, because what ended up happening was they were counting all like the electronic votes, and majority of those were supposedly in favor of Trump at a lot of different states. And then this year, because of the COVID or whatever, they had a lot of mail-in votes. So supposedly the mail-in votes were in favor of the Democrats. So as they started counting those votes, the numbers just started shifting drastically. And now all of a sudden Biden's almost like 95% implied to win the whole thing.
Yeah, because I was saying to Alex before, because I got on the Betfair exchanges because I was watching something with Bernie Sanders. I think he was speaking to Jimmy Fallon. And long story short, he was basically saying Republicans are more likely to go to voting booths and do it that way, whereas the Democrats are far more likely to send theirs via post. So what's going to happen is initially Trump's going to steal ahead, and he's probably going to say, you should be counting postal votes. You shouldn't count. I've won already. And then you'll see suddenly a lot of votes coming for Biden, and it'll completely switch, which is exactly what happened. So I got on Betfair, I think, and I started off I saw Trump at 1.4. So I laid him and then backed Biden at 3.5. And then as the time went on, it just completely switched. So then I reversed it and then backed Trump and then laid off Biden to obviously guarantee it. But just the sheer price change was just insane so quickly. Like, it's just crazy.
I mean, it was kind of like an easy angle to see. Like, it was only obvious as I was, hearing it about on the news of how like the Democrat votes are all going to be like mail-ins. And then I heard there were a lot of mail-in votes. So I'm like, oh, it's definitely going to shift. And then as I woke up the next morning, it was completely like gone. Like all the prices for Biden were gone. It was 3.0 before I went to sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, it was like 1.3.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's like I was saying to George too, it's just such an easy market to arb, isn't it? And because there's just so much liquidity there too, it's crazy.
Yeah, 40K limits at Chris, $40,000 US.
Oh, it's just crazy, isn't it? An election.
So there was almost $500 million matched on Betfair exchanges on the election.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it's insane. I mean, it just shows how the election is it's not really an election. It's like just like a popularity contest. It's just entertainment. Like it's crazy that. I mean, the cover even in here in Australia, like we have like 24/7 news channels set up for it, and obviously it's just like it just shows how global the thing is. So yeah. Anyway, I got a bit off topic there, but I think it's very interesting how this election's just become like one of the most fascinating betting markets you'll ever see. So it's probably pretty relevant. All right, we'll move on to Sunday's game. We got Leicester versus Wolves. I thought this was a bit of a fun game, kind of like a little playoff between the slight outsiders from the big six clubs. We got Leicester at 2.39, draw 3.25, and Wolves win at 3.53. Leicester on a nice little run now. A few wins together, both in the Europa League and the Premier League. They're actually sitting 1 point behind Liverpool in second on the table now. Whereas Wolves seem to have recovered also after a few losses at the start of the season, but they actually still rank 14th if you look at their XG for and against ratio. So if you look at their 4 goals that they should have scored XG against their goals that they should have conceded, their ratio, and you minus the 2 off, their ratios into the negative. So they're ranked 14th in the EPL, which is quite interesting. Which I guess kind of shows that maybe the value does sit with Leicester here, but they are still a pretty unpredictable side at the moment. George, what are you seeing here in terms of cards and any interesting stats for this one?
Yeah, I was just sort of looking through it, and Leeds have lost just one of their last 23 home league games against Wolves, winning 13 and drawing 9. And that defeat came in the Championship back in 2007. But in the top flight, Wolves are winless in their last 10 away games against Leicester, drawing 4, losing 6. And Wolves have failed to score in 6 of their last 7 top flight matches at the King Power as well. But I kind of go through. Obviously, you've got a fancy. I fancy Leicester. I know Wolves obviously picked up some okay results, but I think the way Leicester are playing at the moment on home soil, I'd fancy them just on current form. But in terms of cards, interestingly, Leicester are top of the discipline table so far in the Premier League in the games that we've had this season. They picked up a total of 17, and they've collected 7 at home, averaging around 2.33 a game. Whereas Wolves have got the least, the best disciplined side in the league. In fact, they've only picked up 3 out of 3 games. They're averaging around a card a game. So, sort of looking at, I kind of had a look at the handicaps on the cards. So, just for Leicester to see the most cards on Bet365, you can pick that up at 6-5, which I believe that'd be 2.2. So, I feel there's value in that, considering that Leicester have already picked up, far significant higher number, because also those 7 that they've picked up is in 3 home games. So they played the same number of Leicester played the same number of home games as Wolves have away, and the difference in cards is obviously there for all to see. So I think Leicester are more aggressive. I think they've got more aggressive sides in there. Wolves are very kind of compact. So yeah, I think there's value in the Leicester on the 6-5. I'd probably potentially have that. I'd have that more of a. I want to say maybe 4-5, maybe I'd have that at. But yeah, those are the kind of angles that I'm sort of looking at. Really, it's difficult because Leicester, they're quite often high scoring games, whereas on the other side it's the polar opposite. Wolves don't tend to have high scoring games. It's very tight. They usually try and hit 1 or 2, and so it's hard to tell which way this would go. But I'd probably leave this one alone in terms of results or goals or anything like that. If I was to have a play, it would be on that card handicap. Yeah,
awesome, mate. Wolves are a pretty interesting team, aren't they? I feel like every time I track any of their games, it's always 0-0 at half time, and then bloody Raul Jimenez scores a goal at like the 70 or 80th minute. It's incredible.
Yeah. It's always the same. It's how it just tends to be the format of how all their games go recently, to be fair. I mean, interestingly, I do kind of think, where would they be without Raul Jimenez? And obviously, especially with the loss of Diego Jota, we've seen how well he's performing. But yeah, they rely heavily on him. But it's difficult in terms of goals. But there we are. That's the nature of the Premier League for you.
Yeah. So what are the markets doing in this one, Harout?
It's pretty stagnant as far as either side. They're not really supporting Leicester or Wolverhampton, but we are seeing some support for the unders in this game. The under 2 total goals opened at 2.26, and a lot of places are now down to 2.1. So I'm seeing that as possibly being, closing maybe even around, 1.95. So I might play the 2.1 here on the under 2 goals.
Oh, there we go. A bit of live action for you. Yeah, we are live now, mate. So you might lose that position, mate, right now as people scramble.
Yeah, we'll see. If they got a lot of money, they'll move the market right now.
Love that. Just swings the big dick back and says, "You got the money, though." Oh, so good, so good.
No comment.
I've completely lost what I was going to say now. But,
you've got him blushing, Harout.
Yeah, it's just hilarious. All right, well, there we go. What do we go? Under 2 goals. That's very interesting. So there's a bit of money there. What was I going to say? No, I've completely lost my track of thought now.
You've rendered Alex speechless. This is absolute scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. I was wondering, because obviously you got the Europa League. I'm not sure if the Leicester game started yet or not. But how much do you just like the odds move on, say Leicester versus Wolves on Sunday? How much do those odds move throughout the Leicester Europa League game?
I mean, it's correlated at the end of the day. The same team that's playing today is the same team, to some degree, with a few adjustments to lineups and things like that, is going to be playing on Sunday. So it's one of those things where it's very possible it can move based on how this game is playing out. So
I guess it would maybe move more for the Champions League games, because I don't know how Leicester do it, but at least when Arsenal are playing the Europa League, they field a completely different side, basically, into the Premier League team. So you can't really take too much away from their Europa League results. But I guess maybe a Champions League, like Manchester United, Man City, they come out with a full-strength side. You can read into those results a bit more, Harout.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even matter, even Europa, if something's going on and it's completely, directly related with the next game, it will still get movement. It doesn't matter. So, if a market's already out for the next game and they're playing right now, it's still worth keeping an eye out, because you never know. It can move on anything.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll move along to the last game we're going to preview here, the big one of the round. Georgie must be excited and very nervous about this one. Manchester City versus Liverpool, 2.02 for Man City, the draw at 4.25, and the win for Liverpool at 3.41. As I've said many times before, these odds could have changed as I looked them up about 24 hours ago. Liverpool they've got Matip back for this one, as opposed to last week where they didn't have either Matip, Fabinho, or Van Dijk. But yeah, Van Binho. Jesus Christ. Fabinho is still out for another 2 weeks. And then Man City, if you look at them, I mean, you can look at their XG and say they're actually not doing that well, but I kind of think it just got thrown a bit out of whack with that loss to Leicester, which was a bit of with those 3 penalties. So I don't know how much you can look into it. But it's probably just best to ask you, George, like what you've thought of Man City so far this season, man.
The one thing that's been very clear with us is we're not the same fluid side that we were, say, 2 or 3 seasons ago, where we just absolutely blew teams apart. We'd create chance. You wouldn't mind missing 2 or 3 chances. Well, we're going to create so many more. It doesn't even matter. We're not getting that this season. We're not creating as many chances. But I think that also ties into the fact that we've not really had a striker. Sergio Aguero and Gabriel Jesus have both been injured. We've had to kind of put Sterling through the middle. More recently, we've seen Ferran Torres go through the middle. So it's been a bit difficult. But the same time, on the flip side of that, for once, our defence has looked, since the Leicester game, it's looked relatively sound. As soon as Diaz has come in, him and Laporte playing together, even Nathan Ake when he's come in, they've all looked solid. They don't look like they commit mistakes consistently like they used to do. For example, last season we had Nicholas Otamendi, who obviously I loved Otamendi, but he spent half the time horizontal. And interestingly enough, tonight playing for Benfica, he got sent off within the first 5 minutes. The man's great, but he's an absolute liability. So we've upgraded our defence, and it's good to see. Still questions over left back. Obviously, Ake has played there a couple of times and looked good. Benjamin Mendy is, as much as I like him, he's just not reliable. He's not reliable in the slightest. So, but in terms of kind of this one, it's going to be a great game. But obviously, we're still, there's going to be no Sergio Aguero, no Virgil van Dijk, Fabinho. You want to see in these kind of games, you want to see all of the best players fit and available. That's what makes them great games. But for the game itself, I'm trying not to look at it through blue tinted glasses, but just kind of going on stats in general. City have won their last 3 home league games against Liverpool by an aggregate of 11-1. But we've not won 4 consecutively against them at home since 1937. So hopefully we can put that one to rights and make that happen this time. Because, likewise, Liverpool haven't kept a clean sheet in any of their last 10 away league games against City. And also with that, City have won 9 of the last 10 Premier League games against the reigning champions, with the only exception of that being a 4-2 loss to Leicester in December of 2016. I personally think now that our defence is a lot more settled, and we've got Gabriel Jesus back, who scored an absolutely ridiculously good goal midweek, might add. Naturally, obviously, we're favourites, we're at home, but I think we'll put them to the sword. I think we'll win this one. I just think their defence is there. I think it all comes down to if our defence can handle the likes of Jota, Salah, Mane, and the defensive striker that is Firmino. But yeah, well, it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a great game. I always get nervous for them, but I see us picking up the win. In terms of cards, again, it's just so difficult to assess because Liverpool predominantly rarely see cards. To be fair, just because they keep the ball so well, they play so quickly that players don't get a chance to get anywhere near them to put a tackle in, and it kind of works out that way. But obviously, with the two teams playing sort of arguably similar brands of football, it could go either way. I mean, for this one, I think I'd be watching, but my money would be on a City win if it was up to me, simply because the fact that their defence obviously is missing their main player. And obviously even Fabinho, who drops in there and looks world class at times, he's not available either. I know they've got Matip back, as you've just mentioned, but overall, I think it'll be tight. I don't see it being, like the games of the past where it's been 4-3, and I see this one being a lot tighter. So I'd have even potentially City and under 3.5 would be an interesting one for me. As a lot of Pep results since Pep's come in, 2-1 has been a regular result. So I'd have City and under 3.5 for this one, I think.
Very interesting. We did a poll on the Trademate Twitter before, and everyone's saying the values with Liverpool this weekend. But I'm kind of on your side too. I kind of eliminate your bias a little bit, because I looked at those odds myself, and I thought the value straight away was with Man City on this one instead of the Liverpool at 3.41. Based on everything you've said. But interestingly enough, so Aguero is still out because he came back like only 2 or 3 weeks ago when he played Arsenal.
Yeah, and he was out again because I'm trying to remember which. I think it was against. Yeah, it was against West Ham. I'm sure it was. And I was watching him, and the old Sergio Aguero would be on the shoulder of the last defender, looking to get those runs in behind, looking to get himself one-on-one with the keeper. And when we're mounting these attacks, and he was sort of dawdling in the centre circle after dropping deep and not really following it, and I was like, he better be injured, because if he's not, something is seriously wrong with that man. And lo and behold, I think he came off and got a slight injury. So, he's obviously getting on a bit. He's not the Sergio of old. So obviously, I'm sure I've said before on this podcast, we're in desperate need of replacing him as our main striker. I really like Gabriel Jesus, and it's interesting to see how he does, because his goal scoring record, I know everyone sort of mocks him and says he's not good enough to take the mantle from Sergio, but his goals per game ratio is insane. It's really good. I rate him quite highly, and he gets on the end of everything. He's good in the air, got great touch. He's got that bit of flair that you want from your forward. Yeah, I like him, but at the same time, you can't go. A squad can't just have one striker. We need other options. At our best, we had 4 different options, and we had, I think it was potentially even Sergio, Tevez. Was it Tevez Negredo? I think Tevez might have gone by then, but Dzeko and players like that. We had so many options. So yeah, Aguero, we need someone else to come in. We're crying out for a new striker, but regardless of that, with Jesus in the squad, now we've got an official striker, that focal point. I think it puts us in a great position this weekend.
Cool. Harout, George likes what, under 3.5 and Man City in this one. What do you think? What's the market doing?
The market kind of likes Liverpool, double chance. They're opened at 1.95 and it's already trending towards 1.87. So, I mean, that's interesting to keep an eye on to see how the market will continue to play this as we get closer to Sunday. As far as the
keep going.
As far as the total goals market, there's also a bit of support on the overs, but it's not too significant. If I were to play anything on this game, it would probably be Liverpool double chance based on how the market's starting to shape up.
So what price is Liverpool double chance at now?
At Pinnacle, it's 1.9. Over there, it opened at 1.96, but it's based on what I'm seeing a little bit at exchanges and stuff. I would put the higher probability that we'll continue to see support on Liverpool opposed to anything else.
There we go. He's gone against everything we've just said, George, mate.
Yeah, for once. Most of the time I'm agreeing with you guys.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, all right. Very interesting. We'll see how that plays out. I don't know, have Liverpool got any other injuries that I'm missing here? It's Henderson's back now, I guess. I'm pretty sure they've got their whole... It's just their defence that's just been absolutely smashed up, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like potentially Firmino could be left on the bench. Obviously, as Utd has been performing so well, Firmino could be left on the pine. Thiago's obviously not fully fit yet.
Yeah.
So I mean, but who knows? They could do a 4-2-3-1 with both Firmino and Utd in the side. This remains to be seen. But yeah, as you've mentioned, obviously Matip's expected to return to the 11. He's still doubtful looking at it. So, but in terms of players missing for City, Benjamin Mendy and Fernandinho are both out. Fernandinho's a big loss in the middle for them. Sergio Aguero's doubtful, and Scott Carson, the man, the myth, the legend, is also doubtful. But no, and then for Liverpool, it's the ones that we already know. So you've got Virgil van Dijk, Fabinho and Oxlade-Chamberlain. They're all definitely out, with Matip and Thiago both doubtful as well.
All right, love it. All right, well, we'll move on to some of the other EPL games and just put a general question out there for you, George. Is there anything else in the EPL that you like before we get into our best bets of the weekend?
Well, there's a couple, because thing is, I've basically got 2 options for my best bet of the weekend, both from the Premier League. So I mean, kind of looking through it, I've opted on one, so I'll save it for when I discuss my best bet, if you like, because it's in the Premier League. So.
All right, too easy. And Harout, any other big shifts in the market that you think are worth getting on now in the EPL?
Let me just do a quick glance. I know that I'm probably going to play that under 2 on the Wolverhampton game.
Okay. And that's at 2.2 or not?
2.15 I can get. So I'm probably going to lock in the 2.15 because a lot of the sharp books are already dropping to like 2.1 and 2.08.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll probably play that there. But in terms of movement, I mean, we've pretty much covered the games that have, the bit of movement I see early so far.
All right, cool. Well, we might as well get on to best bets of the weekend then. George, mate, won't hold you any longer, mate. Fire away.
Yeah, well, indeed. Well, hopefully we can make it 7 out of 8. And I mean, I was going to go to Germany originally, but refs aren't released until the day of the games. So what I'm going to do is I'm going with the Southampton against Newcastle game. And what I like in this one is for the Southampton to see 2 or more cards. So on Bet365, that counts as, if it's a single red card, it's still over 2 cards because they count as 2 cards, obviously. So yeah, my best bet is going to be Saints to see 2 cards, and that's just over evens, so 11 to 10 or 2.1 if you do in decimals. They've seen 2+ in 2 out of their 3 home games so far this season, including against the likes of obviously West Brom. Newcastle are the 3rd most fouled team in the league so far overall in terms of free kicks 1 per game. Also, Peter Banks is reffing this one. I do like Peter Banks, and he's reffed 3 games so far this season. And the home side have seen at least a card in all of them. And considering that Southampton commits some of the most fouls per game in the league, I do fancy them to pick up a couple here. Newcastle coming off that good result against Everton are going to be right up for this one with the likes of Saint Maximan, and they've got some great players there in terms of pace who like to dribble. Almiron who likes to go drive at people. Southampton are a scrappy side. They'll put some hard tackles in that will draw fouls. So yeah, I think value here for Southampton to see 2 cards at home, which they've done in, I believe it's 2 out of 3 home games this season, and I think 4 of their last 5 overall. I think that's good. So for my best bet of the weekend is for Southampton to see 2 or more cards at 11 to 10.
Mate, superb stuff. All right, we'll see if we can get it'll probably be like 6 in a row and 7 of your last 8, mate. We'll see how we go. Harout, mate, best bet of the weekend, as always, can come from anywhere, UFC, any other European league, maybe a bit of, US sports. You never know. What do you got?
For me in UFC, it's got to be Alexander Romanov. I already showed you the price I played, so I was pretty confident at that price point. I got minus 260 American, and he's already trended towards minus 369. So I really like that position. I like how that's holding up. If you guys can get like a minus 350 in the market, I know that there are some European books that sometimes are behind. I would definitely keep an eye on Romanov. I think he even has a little bit more room for the price to keep going up. Another one that I really like, who opened as a dog and is close to pretty much 2.0 to both sides now, big free line, is Ian Heinisch. He opened at 2.4 and he's at 1.96 now. So there's been a lot of good support there. I feel like there's still some room to keep dropping because we're still a few days away from Sunday, Saturday, Sunday. Another one that's seen good support that I also agree with is Tanner Bozier. He opened at minus 250 American. He's at minus 302 now. There's a few spots that are offering like minus 260, minus 270. So if you guys find that there too, I definitely play that. I think that has a little bit more room to go as well.
Wow, nice, mate. So what did you say Romanov was at now?
He's minus 370. If you go back to our messages, you'll see I shared 260 with you, minus 260.
Yeah, I think I got on that straight away, so I probably got something around that price. Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, there's some.
And I'm mostly sharing it. Like I don't really want to say that, obviously the price is completely far off than what I got right now. But usually in UFC, like a lot of these things, the market moves in unison. So if we see another wave, everyone's going to move together. And generally towards Saturday, as you guys heard on the last podcast, even the ones that had already moved that I had played, they continue to go in that direction a good chunk of the time. So even if my price that I said that I played at, you can't get, I think that there's still a little bit more of a value to be extracted from those games or from those matches.
Yeah, would you say in general the UFC market or the MMA markets are the easiest to predict in terms of, like you've said before, it seems like when a decent chunk of money comes for a favorite, it just keeps going in and in and in?
Yeah, definitely. It's more easier to gauge like the direction of the movement in the UFC as opposed to something like EPL. If I give you guys my market read on EPL, it's still going to be decent. It's still going to be good. Majority of the time it's going to close in favor, but there's going to be a lot more closing line volatility on my reads early on, like Wednesday, Thursday, as opposed to something like UFC, which is most likely going to go in the same direction.
Yeah. Awesome. And have you had a look at the Glover Santos market, mate, at all?
Yeah, Santos. I actually we missed that one on Santos, but he's also seen some good support. I didn't really have an opinion there when it first opened up, so I didn't really I didn't get on that one. But that's also another one that's seen quite a bit of money in the market too. He opened at minus 195 American, which is like 1.52.
Yeah,
and he's out to like 1.4 now, minus 240.
I still like him in the 1.4s though. I still think there's, especially if you can get him at 1.45, I still think there's some value there. And Ryan mentioned to me that he likes him for a KO stoppage. And I think, I mean, when I got on him, a KO at 2.1. So I don't know if you can still get those odds. But I mean,
there are some places that are offering like minus 220. So I think that, at 220 is pretty generous price, because that's 20 cents behind what Pinnacle is at right now. And if it's going to, have a good probability of continuing to trend in that direction, then you're clearly playing a value bet there. At worst, I think it stays where it's at, but I think the probability of seeing more money there is high.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's a step ahead of Glover at this point in his career, and also I think the market's maybe a little bit hesitant, or the compilers are a bit hesitant on Santos, maybe just because he's coming off a pretty serious knee injury in that Jones fight. But overall, like it doesn't really seem to affect fighters that much, like serious knee injuries, like those kind of injuries. It doesn't, as opposed to maybe like other sports like an EPL, like a soccer or whatever, where you lose like tons of speed from like ACL surgery and stuff like that. I don't think it affects fighters as much.
Nah, sometimes people are playing with broken feet or knees in the middle of them.
Yeah, they're just tough bastards, eh?
Yeah, it doesn't affect them as much, but it's still something to consider, obviously. But I've seen people finish fights with like a broken ankle or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, you hear stories. Oh, well, what's his name? Habib is the most recent example. Apparently, had a broken foot or broken like 2 toes or something in like 3 weeks before the Gaethje fight. So, I mean, that's like a pretty minor example of fighters carrying injuries into fights. I mean, they fight for a living and they fight in training all the time, so it's pretty impossible to not carry something in.
Yeah, that's right.
And then maybe lastly, Harout, have you got any, I assume most of the Europa games are kicking off in about 15 minutes. Is there anything there you think is worth jumping on right now?
Yeah, I had a few positions earlier. Some of them reversed. I was actually betting them while I was sharing some of the insight. But I know Leicester saw some support early on, and then it retraced a little bit. So I'll kind of share some confirmations with some of the viewers. I'm sure they bet some of the Europa stuff. If you bet Leicester early, you got in good. There was also a little bit of support on Hoffenheim that retraced a bit. A lot of these upcoming games, the ones that are starting at the top of the hour, there hasn't been really anything within the past couple hours that I've seen. I've been monitoring it. The only ones are the ones I just mentioned. I did play the over 2.5 goals on Leicester and Braga though. That one saw quite a bit of support since the opener, and I like that one a lot.
Okay, awesome, mate. All right, you can find these two fellas on Twitter at cgeorgegamble and @betlikeharout. And also check out some of George's write-ups for We Love Betting. What are you previewing this week, mate?
Well, funny enough, I did the Ludogorets Razgrad versus Tottenham game tonight. Picked 2 bets, and both of those have won, so that bodes well for the bet of the weekend. Hopefully, we can continue that form. And I'm also previewing, I believe it's Crystal Palace against Leeds this weekend.
Oh, nice. What are you seeing in that one?
I've not had too much of a chance to look as of yet. Obviously, been updating sheets and everything, but tomorrow's my day to delve into all the stats. So keep your eyes peeled on that one. I'll obviously retweet the link onto my Twitter page as well.
Yeah, must follow those 2 accounts, and we'll finish up finally once again with the quiz question of the week. Just stop you Googling there, fellas. What is the name of the Pro Football League in Australia? Is it A-League, Australian Soccer League, Australian Football League, or Australian Soccer Premiership? Haru, we'll let you go first, mate. What do you reckon?
Man, why did you drop the difficulty level to like novice? This isn't even difficult. It's
I
A-League.
forget that you bet these kind of leagues, probably, don't you?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Just gave the answer away.
What about George, mate? Do you know the answer?
Pick something else. Make yourself sound silly.
Can you think of anything? Can you think of anything on the spot?
All right, the top scorer in A-League history.
Ooh, I like that. It's not Tim Cahill, is it?
No, mate. He played about 5 games.
Yeah, true. Ooh,
I don't even. I'm going to just double check who I would guess the answer is.
That is a good one.
Oh, it's not the person I thought it was.
Oh,
I'll give you a. He's Austrian, I think.
Oops.
Oh, come on, mate. Player records, most. Yeah, righto. Oh, the person I thought came third. Have you heard of Archie Thompson before?
No, not in my life.
No. Okay. Oh no, he's not Austrian. Jeez, he's Kosovo Albanian. Well, there you go. Jeez, close. And he scored 135 goals in 213 games, a 0.63 goals per game record. Can you guess the Albanian?
Hey, I thought you said he was Kosovian or Albanian.
He's like, it says Kosovo Albanian. No idea what that means.
Kosovo Albanian.
Well, what if you can give me anyone in the top 10? Why don't you name me one player in the A-League?
What, currently?
No, in history. See if you can give me 3 or 5 players or something in the A-League history.
Man, you went from an easy question to trying to crush us.
Oh, so you had because you had obviously Tim Cahill was there for 5 games. You had Aaron Moy, because obviously we signed you from there, and we had our youngster Oz. He's a young lad. Oh, Daniel Arzani.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, the City just sign all these because City own. There's a club called Melbourne City.
Melbourne City, yeah.
It's the biggest fraud of all time. So what they do is Manchester City sign these Australian players, and then they loan them out to Melbourne City. It's the biggest fraud in history.
Is it something about you're not allowed to sign players to each other or something like that?
No, we can. We have I think we have a salary cap though.
Oh right.
So I don't know how that works out. I guess if they do it that way, then they just completely go over the transfer fee, which is it's such a rort. I don't know how they get away with it.
It's a loophole, obviously. Like, we'll sign them, but we'll just give them straight to you. Realistically, signing players in the A League for Sheikh Mansour, like, what have I got that money down the back of the sofa? There you go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the biggest transfer fee has probably been the Aaron Moy one from Manchester to Manchester City, which is probably like 1 million or something.
And then we sold him for 10, like a year later.
Yeah, what an investment! Just use the Aussies for a bit of investment. No heart in that decision at all. Haru, do you wanna give me 3 A-League players, mate, in history? You could probably just think of your most famous Australian players.
All I know is Tim Cahill. That's it.
And you have Mark Viduka, Harry Kewell.
I don't think Viduka ever played A-League. I think Kewell did. Anyway. I can't believe people are still listening to us. I think we're peaking at viewers now. It's just people, maybe this is the market we should be talking about. A-League, people are just so interested.
We're talking about the Socceroos.
Yeah. We've got some questions here from Ayan Khan, and he's asking about Europa, mate. If you wind the clock back about 10 minutes, Haru gave away a few picks there. I think he liked Braga and maybe Leicester too, but you might have lost out on the price by now. But yeah, anything else you guys want to get off your chest before we call it a day?
No.
No. All right. Too
Good.
easy.
Cool
then. All right. Another podcast coming out on Monday. Spoke to a fella called Michael Verity. He's a golf odds compiler. So if you're into your golf, I think it's a must listen, whatever you pronounce that. Yeah, I don't know too much about golf, but I assume some of the stuff he gave away was pretty good. But yeah, thanks for listening. Do a quick rate and review of the podcast. Hopefully this will end up on the podcast this week. I'm having a bit of shocker there. I don't know how it works, but see if I can get it working this week. Subscribe to all our channels, and of course start a free week trial of Trademate Sports, and get some real-time value betting odds sent your way. But cheers again, fellas, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks. I don't know if there's any UFC next week. Maybe we'll catch you next Thursday with some UFC stuff, but if not, then we'll probably take the week off. So catch you next time.
See you then. Take